Howdy folks, this is BelGeode. Happy New Year to everyone. Welcome to 2023. We are in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and this is a test, otherwise known as one of my chill vids, the first one for the new year. And no doubt, you probably recognize this little beastie that I'm sitting inside right now. This is, of course, the Bell 206, commonly known as the JetRanger, and this particular version is brought to us by FlyInside. And first off, really huge thanks to Dan from FlyInside for the review copy of this particular helicopter. Now, even though this would technically be a review, we're still doing it as a chill vid because I'm still in the process of trying to tweak my VR for the Reverb G2 just to get the most out of recording. It's definitely a different setup from the Oculus Rift S was, and because of that I'm having to, I guess, think outside the box a little bit just to try and figure out the best way to record this. So with that having been said, no doubt you've already seen the little disclaimers popping up at the bottom, and I will just say there may be stutters in this video. I do have image stabilization going as I am recording, so hopefully it will mitigate a lot of that. But yeah, don't count on it. Either way, hopefully the video will be viewable. If you're watching it right now, then obviously it at least passed my minimum, so that's why it is currently on YouTube. Alright, so where are we? We are in Zimbabwe. In particular, we are close to the Zambezi River, and we're going to be taking a trip up the Zambezi River until we get to the glorious Victoria Falls. That is our destination for today. Now, there are other helipads along the way because they do whitewater rafting and so on, so you gotta have helipads every now and then just in case you need to rescue some people that get dashed on the rocks, as it were. So yeah, we are probably going to want to stop off at as many helipads as we possibly can as we make our way to the falls, and then the falls, of course, will be the highlight of the video. Alright, but first, as is typically the case with me, I do like to show you the various external cameras. Now, I did help FlyInside as far as getting the camera straight, so we'll take a look at that right now. So, our first camera is right here. That's the behind the bird view. Always have to have a behind the bird view. And if you notice off in the distance there, you'll see a little cable car. I haven't seen it move yet, but I do understand that they do from time to time go up and down the mountainside there. That's pretty cool. We got this little Land Rover here too. That's kind of neat. Next camera. The infamous BelGeode landing cam. Had to have this one in there, and you can see the cable car off in the distance there is starting to move finally. That's pretty neat. I don't know if we'll be able to get a good look at it after we take off, but just the fact that it moves is just too cool. Then we've got an over the co-pilot side view, which is pretty neat. The only thing I don't like about this camera is the fact that it does point a little to the right. I would rather it pointed more like this, but that's a very, very minor complaint that I could just as easily fix in the cameras.cfg and send it to FlyInside. I'm not going to mess with it though because it's not that often that I use this camera. Then we've got an above the bird view. Now, I love this one, but I'm going to tell you right now, this one is a pain in the butt to try and fly and use this camera because of the fact that you can't see your gauges. You can't tell if you're in level flight, so things could go pear-shaped really quickly using this view. So, unless you are really confident with your ability to fly straight or your ability to hover in one place, you're probably not going to use this camera that much. And then we have your typical side view, which is great for screenshots and really taking a look at this livery, which is one of the default liveries. I'm not exactly sure where this comes from, if this is based on a real aircraft, but I do love the fact that it's that olive green, even if it is a little shinier than I would expect any kind of military bird to be. I'm not 100% certain if this is considered a military variant. But yeah, you can see their textures. We've got another camera view for the other side. And there's the other side. You'll notice that the other side is a little bit lower to the ground, which is also really cool. You can really get a look at the textures. Now, the textures are not like 4K or 8K from my understanding. They're a little bit less than that. But that actually works in this helicopter's favor. Yeah, the textures aren't going to be, you know, like quote-unquote Carinado quality, and I'm just throwing them out as an example. But the fact that they're easier on the textures also translates to being easier in FPS, which is very useful for us VR flyers. Now we've got an oblique angle there. More than likely I will not be using this camera angle when I'm flying because there is no autopilot on this bird. There is no way to hold her steady so that I can do those nifty little cinematic shots. So all of our little drone camera cinematic shots, like what I do in the beginning, will have to be done when we're actually on a helipad. We're not going to want to do it in flight. And then finally, we have this view. Now this view is kind of cool, but it does highlight one difference that I do want to point out between the two Bell 206s. As you may know, FlyInside and CowanSim both brought Bell 206s into Microsoft Flight Simulator within short time of each other. Now, one of the major differences that you're going to notice, at least modeling-wise, for the two helicopters, you see that grill there where the engine is, or the engines. I think there's only one engine in this thing. But in this particular bird, it's basically painted on. You can see the mesh there. Now, while you can open up those little covers and take a look at the inner workings of the helicopter, what CowanSim did differently was they actually made the grill a 3D model, so you can see all the wires and hoses and all of that stuff inside. It's a very tiny difference between the two helicopters. As far as I'm concerned, both of the helicopters are on par, but I'll be honest with you folks, I've been flying this one a lot more often, and the updates have been coming in fast and furious since this thing was released, so kudos to FlyInside on that. All right, so this is the last camera. We're going to put it back to here, and we're going to keep it here for a little while. You can see the cable cars coming back up, and we're going to go inside, and I'll show you around the office before we start her up. Okay, so here we are in the office. It is pretty standard as far as a Bell 206 goes. Remember, there is no autopilot in this thing, so you won't see the SAS or stability augmentation system or anything like that. You will just see the basics. So we can see all our gauges here, and I'm going to set my altimeter while I'm thinking about it. There we go. We do not have Kara with us today, so we're probably not even going to be contacting the ATC. We're just going to fly. But you can see everything going on there. And you can see our collective. Now, in a very, very recent update, the idle release button that you're seeing on the collective is now effective. It was not before. The way this helicopter works, when you roll the throttle, which is the little brown grip that you're seeing on a collective, it's supposed to stop at the idle stop. That's how you start this bird. And then, of course, you're gradually going to increase your throttle to get to flight idle. If you want to turn this helicopter off, you have to remember to push the idle release button. Otherwise, when you roll the throttle down to its minimum RPM, it's just going to stay at ground idle. So you want to push that button and then roll it back a little further, and that'll actually turn the helicopter off. So a little tip for you there from your Uncle Bell. All right. But yes, pretty straightforward stuff. Pretty straightforward stuff. If you're familiar with helicopters, this one is about as stock standard as it gets for somewhat modern helicopters. I say it that way because the 206 has been out for a very long time, but it is an extremely popular workhorse. Let's see if we can take a quick look in the back, and actually I think I'm going to do it the easy way by simply moving my seat. So there we go. We'll just kind of clip through that, and you can see the back seat. Now, the back seat in this type of helicopter is notoriously cramped, and even though I will say that FlyInside's scaling of this helicopter does feel a slight bit off. And the reason why I say that is because these David Clark headphones, in VR, as I'm looking at them, there's no way this would fit over my ears. So that tells me that the scale is a little bit smaller than it should be. It's not too critical because it's close to real life. It's just certain things are off. But the back seat does feel this cramped. So yeah, at least they got that right. And I like the little book there, Clinical Medicine. It's funny, I'm in the clinical medicine industry, so it's funny that that's there. And we've got our little chart there that tells us how to egress a helicopter in case of emergency, and so on and so forth. So pretty cool stuff. I love the detail in the interior. And like I said, the modeling and the textures are good. They're very good. They're not going to be perfect, and of course, by perfect, usually we use Carenado as a standard because, well, that's just what they're known for. But for what it is, it works, and I appreciate that greatly. All right, let's get back to the pilot seat. Now, as always, with any helicopter, you're going to watch which way your rotor blade spins, because that's going to determine the torque that this helicopter has. And when it go to takeoff, you're going to want to put in the opposite pedal. So we will experience that momentarily. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. We'll see if we can get everything started here. All right, so first things first, we want battery. So my battery switch is up here, and when I use my verbal button, it will also activate the generator. So what we will need to do is put the generator to start, which is the up position. We will turn it to run, I guess, once we actually get the aircraft started. We can do a quick caution and warning lights test. There you go. Make sure everything lights up like a Christmas tree. It most certainly does. We are good to go there. All right, the Garmin, we'll go ahead and leave that off while it's powering itself up. We really don't need it because basically we're just going to follow the river. Now, as far as fuel and whatnot, we should already have fuel on. Our fuel switch is over here, and it's currently guarded and in the on position, so our fuel is going. What we don't have is the fuel pumps to give us fuel flow. So you'll notice that the needles are at the bottom. You can see our actual fuel on board is about 50%. So that's where these little fuses come in. You can push these fuses in. This is awesome. So we're going to want to get the boost pumps going, and that will actually give us enough fuel to start this bird. You know, you got to be careful. This thing does have realism settings. You can hot start this helicopter, and don't be too surprised if I do. If you do hot start it, there is a way where you can utilize a little pop-up that will pop up even if you're in VR, and you can just retry the whole situation. Hopefully we won't have that issue. Now we do have our throttle off, so this is good. This is what we want. And we're pretty much set for an engine start. We'll make sure the rotor brake is up. Yep, rotor brake is up, which means we do not have the rotor brake activated, which is perfect. We'll go ahead and get some lights going. So we will get anti-collision lights, nav lights, and you know what? I'm going to turn this on. I'm not 100% certain if we'll be able to see it during the daytime, but that's our dashboard lights here. Okay, so we're pretty much ready for an engine start. What does it take to start this thing? Well, we're going to hit the starter. We're going to wait till our NG reaches roughly about 15 or so, and then we're going to roll the throttle to that idle stop that I told you about, and that should get us started up. Hopefully we won't have a hot start. You can see we definitely have fuel flow going to the engine right now. All right, I think that we are good to go, so how about we give it a shot? Cross your fingers, everybody. I'm going to hit the start button. I usually just hold it down for like 3 seconds or so. We'll watch the NG. Okay, it's at 15. And here we go. Temperature's a little high, but that should start coming down. There we go. I love it. So we're waiting for this to get up to 55. And while we're waiting for that, let's go ahead and get our GPS ready to go. Check fuel, go to checklist. Nah. I'm going to bypass all that. Alright, now the buttons are a little difficult to hit, but once you get them, you should be good to go. I'm going to set this to alt. It says we're squawking 1200. That is incorrect. We should be squawking 7000 considering we're in Africa. And it is going to start getting a little bit loud, so we are going to be able to put the headphones on momentarily, but first let's see if we can power ourselves up. So we're going to roll the throttle up. And we're watching that big gauge in the center here until we get everything into the green. Just keep rolling that throttle to full. Slowly but surely, inch it up. You'll notice that the beeping goes away. That's, of course, our low RPM warning. It is now gone. Now, if you find yourself in a situation where your RPM's a little lower than it should be, you can increase that. Let me get our generator from start to run. And we're also going to turn on the pitot heat as well. There we go. Okay, so you can see it says our RPM's a little low. That's where this comes in, our governor increase, decrease. That'll help us bring that up. And I have that bound to a button on my stick itself. So I'm just kind of raising that up. And there you can see we are now in the center of both green arcs. Actually, we're a little higher than we should be, so I'm going to bump that down a bit. There we go. Right about there should be good. Now we are ready to fly. But first, let's get some headphones on. Ah, much better. Much, much better. All right, let's get our strobe lights on as well. There we go. Make sure everything is pushed in. Yep, yep, yep. The only thing we're missing here is defog and demist, but that's all right. We're not going to worry about that at all. And, of course, we want our gyro instruments on. So there we go. So that'll get our little ADI set up here. And I'm going to check the altimeter one more time. Okay, everything looks good. All right, so you can see our river right there, the blue line, of course, the green line. I'm not 100% certain what that means, but that's relatively our route. And like I said, there's going to be a number of helipads along the way that we are going to be following. But first, let's get our landing lights on. There we go. Landing lights are now on. And I hope you're ready, folks, because it's about to get interesting. I'm going to put it to the outside view. Just remember, as I am increasing collective, I am adding left pedal to compensate, and I'm also pulling the cyclic or the stick back just a touch. All right, let's make sure everything works. Yep, we're looking good. Okay, here goes nothing. Wish me luck. Alright, so far so good. You can see we're right about at 3,000 feet. Now the real question is going to be, just how deep is that riverbed? Well, we're going to find out. We're also going to influence the aircraft by banking to the right, get some of that effective translational lift going, even though technically I am lowering the collective so that we can get down into the riverbed. And this is where it starts to get fun. And this is where you can start to see one of the things that I really love about this scenery. Look at those waterfalls. But look quickly because we're going to pass by it in a moment here. This is what I call waterfalls done right. The scenery developer, I'll remember the name, Jeppesen, I think it's Jeppesen 2001 or something like that. If I'm incorrect, I'll have the pop-up appearing right now. But they went above and beyond with this scenery. Now, while I have stated before that in VR I have noticed some stutters here or there, it usually depends on which direction I'm heading, typically north. So you can see we're almost facing north. We're facing west right now. But yes, every now and then I do notice a little bit of stuttering here and there. Hopefully it'll behave itself for the recording. You can see we're going relatively fast. We're going about 70 knots right now. But yeah, they really went above and beyond a Call of Duty for this scenery. And you're going to see as we get closer and closer to the falls, the rock formations start to change. There's more river rapids, and of course there's more animated people and animated boats. It's just incredible. Now, as far as the helicopter itself, we can definitely manage this. I'm actually going to trim our longitudinal rotor trim back a little bit, so that's going to nose us up, which will then allow me to lower the collective and keep our speed under control without actually gaining too much altitude. Because I do believe we do have a helipad coming up at some point in time in the near future. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and keep us roughly between like 40 and 60 knots. Ideally about 50, but we'll see how the helicopter feels. I will say this though, this thing is a joy to fly. Now, I say that with the caveat that I am obviously not a real-life helicopter pilot. I have 0 hours in any helicopter at all. No hours whatsoever. But I've been flying them long enough in flight simulators, and I know enough real-life helicopter pilots who've given me like tips and tricks over the years, things to watch for, ways to improve my technique. And granted, it's always a learning experience. I'm not going to tell you that I am the absolute best when it comes to flying fake helicopters here, but from what I know and what I was able to discuss with some of the real-life 206 pilots that I have as my friends, FlyInside did justice to this. It flies really well. And consider the fact that they are not using the default flight model that comes with Microsoft Flight Simulator as of November 2022. They're using their own thing. As a matter of fact, the FlyInside Heli Manager is going to run in the background when you have this bird, or the Bell 47 for that matter. It's using a similar system. So while it does benefit from a lot of what's going on in Microsoft Flight Simulator, for example, you'll notice that I'm having to give it a lot of left pedal because of the way the winds are coming down, essentially making this place a wind tunnel. It has its own flight model and its own sensitivities and whatnot that actually make it, in my opinion, more realistic. And I use that word with a grain of salt because, like I said, I'm not a real pilot. As will be evidenced as I try to land this sucker on that H right there. Now this is just awesome. Think about this, folks. How many scenery packages do you normally see where there are animated people in here? Granted, they're all not going to get into the boat and just go, you know, river rafting or whatnot. But the fact that they're moving and talking to each other and so on is the coolest little thing. They didn't have to do that. They didn't have to do any of that. But it's just those little touches, those subtle nuances that make it worthwhile. All right, how about we check out the next helipad a little bit further up the river. So, once again, collective is coming up, left pedal going in, cyclic back just a touch. There we go. We do have half a tank of gas, so that makes us a little bit lighter than we otherwise would be, but I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. That means I can go fast if I want to, and I don't have to worry about pulling the collective too high in order to get off the ground. So I'm fine with that. And we're actually going to ease back some of that anti-torque pedal right now as we start weather vaning. And we'll go to the outside view again for a little bit as we make our way up the river and see if we can find the next helipad. Now, just so you're aware, even though this particular video is about the FlyInside Bell 206, I am going to be doing a video on the Cowansim Bell 206. I know there are a lot of people out there that have compared the two and want to know which one is better and so on and so forth. I'm going to tell you right now, folks, they both have pros and they both have cons, but with that having been said, I do feel that both helicopters are on an equal footing, bearing in mind that they're both starting out. And granted, FlyInside has had more updates in the past few days than Cowansim does. Because let's be honest, Cowan's on vacation. He ain't got time for any of this stuff. He's on vacation with his daughters. He's out there. He's having fun. I don't blame the guy at all. Take some time for yourself. Remember, folks, you are not a machine. But with that having been said, I'm really enjoying where the FlyInside helicopter is right now. This to me feels like what I would expect a Bell 206 to feel like. Also, with that having been said, I have not flown the Cowansim nearly as much because primarily I wanted to do this video where I showed off the FlyInside version. So naturally, a lot of the focus is going to be on this bird. But the simple answer to the original question asked, which one is better? I can't answer that. Why? Because they're both really freaking good. If you can, get both of them. Because you know why? There's no such thing as too many helicopters, especially if you are a helicopter aficionado like I am. And I'm pretty sure that Sergio from helisimmer.com would probably agree with me on this one. You can never have too many helicopters. With that said, I gotta say, I have really been enjoying this one. It has been a real treat, and definitely one of those helicopters that I have been waiting for to make their debut in this flight sim. It is just an extra added blessing that we have sceneries like this that we could actually fly around in, because I will tell you what, folks, nothing to me beats going low and slow over a detailed scenery like this and just enjoying the flight. I've always said that VR flying is like one of the best therapy out there for any of us that do flight simming, and I mean it. I'm trying to find that other helipad. I want to say it's close by, but I don't know exactly where. I think we need to continue going up the river, or maybe we passed it. No, it should be coming up. Should be coming up. Look at that rock face there. Look how detailed that rock face is. That is definitely not default. That's almost Skyrim levels of detail there, which is saying a lot, because you know I spent a lot of time in Skyrim, so I get to see rocks often. It's a very mountainous place. But yeah, this is what I love to see in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I can only hope that this particular scenery developer will grace us with a revamped version of Niagara Falls. You know, I've been complaining about that a lot because Asobo really didn't do much with the whole falls area, so I'm kind of hoping this scenery developer might take that on as a project. Alright, here's our next helipad, so this is going to get interesting really quick. So I am going to nose up, which will slow us down. Give it a little bit more collective just to make sure we don't fall out of the sky, as I also put in some right anti-torque pedal just to make sure that we are pointing in the way I would like to point. And we'll start bringing her in and see if we can land her on that H. We'll do it from the inside this time because honestly it's a little bit easier for me to actually fly the way I would if I were doing something like this in real life. Look at that little bolt there. That is just so cool. That is just so cool. I don't know where all the people are. Maybe they took off in the last helicopter flight out of here, but clearly they left their boat behind. Alright, let's drift a little to the right here. I'm hoping that the image stabilization is holding up. I will remind you the way that I do image stabilization is I'm using a thing called LVK, or Live Visual Kit or something along those lines, which is basically a filter that is added to OBS. And I will also remind you that as far as OBS goes, I am only using OBS as a full screen VR mirror, because we all know what happens when you try to record Microsoft Flight Simulator using its default window. Okay, as the afternoon drags on, we are going to need to find our next helipad, which should be a little bit closer to where we want to be as far as the falls goes. I just realized that I did not set my radar alt, so you know what, let's go ahead and set that up. I'm actually going to put it to about 100 feet. No, you know what, we'll do the standard 200 feet. That way if it goes off, I know I'm going to fall out of the sky. VRS is a thing. As we know, VRS should not be the telltale as to whether or not a helicopter is well modeled, because to be honest with you folks, your objective is to not get into VRS. However, you can. So if that's something that you're looking forward to quote-unquote testing, yeah, you can get into Vortex Ring State. Alright, let me switch my external camera real quick. Okay, that should be good. We'll check the altimeter again. Looks like we're good. Okay, so to answer our question, at 3,000 feet, we were at the lip of this gorge here, and we are currently at 2,400. So that is a good 600-foot drop. Wow. Wow. It's only going to get more and more dramatic as we get closer to Victoria Falls. Alright, so if you're ready, go ahead and start pulling that collective up. Start getting that left pedal in. Nice and easy. Nice and easy. We'll pull back just a touch. There we go. I really hope this is coming out great. That's one of the downfalls of doing VR recording, is I can't actually see what is being recorded. I have to hope that the settings that I have are correct. And that's why I do a lot of these chill vids, because they are basically test videos for me. And obviously, if the test is successful, then we're going to put it on YouTube. But that's kind of how chill vids came into being, because I wanted to make sure that whatever settings I had working here were actually working. So, assuming that this video is great, you get to benefit by watching it. Is it perfect? No, and I know it's never really going to be perfect. Eventually I would like to build a beastly PC that would be able to do all of this. But then by the same token, another option that I have is just to create a second PC and strictly use that PC to record what's going on the first PC. It's a little bit more convoluted, but these are the things that we content creators do to try and bring you useful content. Such as, for example, a review of this helicopter. And like I said, I really can't find too much fault with this. The only things that I find are cosmetic, such as the scale of it. As far as the flight model, does it feel like a helicopter? Most certainly does. And the fact that it's using its own thing, do I think that kind of flies in the face of what Asobo has done? No, not really. Maybe if they were to have done it and it would have been a failure, I would say, yeah, you should have just gone with Asobo, but I can't really fault them for how they've managed to pull this off. They have the experience. FlyInside put out the Bell 47 beforehand, so they had plenty of time to actually play around with this and make sure that they got it right. I would say this is pretty close to perfect. As far as the settings go, what I have done, if you open up the Heli Manager, you're going to see that there is a settings option, like a realism settings option. I set mine to full realism. I also set it to settings of 80, 10, and 10. Now, that's probably not going to mean anything to you until you actually look at the Heli Manager page for it. Then you will see what I mean when I say 80, 10, 10. But that's what I'm currently running, and remember, I use a Virpil setup, so Virpil HOTAS, the Tomcat stick, as well as a CM3 throttle and the Warbird pedals. So I find for me, that works really well. Now, if you're wondering why I've stopped, I noticed an abandoned boat here, and then I saw a discoloration there on the water. That's, I don't know if that's a dead person or what. We're going to get a little bit closer and investigate. And we'll go to the BelGeode landing cam so that we can take a closer look. Okay, it appears it's just a discoloration in the actual water texture. It is not a completely pulverized human being, which is good, because I was afraid I was going to have to, like, call for an emergency or something along those lines. Alright, it is disclaimer time again. As we get closer and closer to Victoria Falls, you can expect the FPS to go down a little bit. Even though I have made adjustments in my Microsoft Flight Simulator to try to mitigate that, when we have scenery particles, as you're going to see, the water spray, the infamous water spray that I've been asking Asobo to put in for Niagara Falls, there's a lot of it here. So this is like the extreme of water spray. It is very well done, but it does tend to hit your FPS a little bit. So be advised, if you do get this scenery package, do prepare for that. The scenery itself is not 100% perfect. You will notice that the water kind of goes at an angle ahead of us here where this fall is. But then everything just looks so good that I can forgive minor stuff like that. This just feels so realistic. I would love to go here in real life. And I actually have a friend of mine who lives in Iowa who says she has a friend of hers who lives in this area. So I did tell her that I was going to send her a link to this video to send to her friend to see if they can verify if the scenery creator actually did this area justice. I would hope that they did, because this just looks incredible. I don't know how much of this is creative liberty by the scene creator, but man, this feels good. Look at that, there's another boat over there. Hopefully he's not going to go down the falls. Buddy, you may want to be careful there. In fact, let's slow down and see if we can follow him for a little bit here. Once again, we're going to go to the BelGeode landing cam for that. So our little dude here is running out a river. He better turn right. There he goes. I wonder if he's going to head back the other way. Looks like he's just doing sprints in this section of the river here. So let's see if we can come to a hover. And we'll check him out. There he goes. There he goes. He's just having himself a whale of a time right now. Alright, good luck to you, buddy. Don't hit the rocks. Okay, let's get this beastie under control and we'll continue heading up the Zambezi River. Alright, here we go. This is where it starts to get a little bit tricky. You will notice these cliffs are no joke. So yes, we definitely do not want to go too fast, and as you can see right now I'm about 60 knots, so I'm going to do a pedal turn here. Yes, the blade slap is real, you could hear it there. And we just instantly dropped about 20 knots in that little pedal turn there. So we'll bring her back up to about 50-ish, between 50 and 60. I don't want to get too fast, just in case we have any more of those ridiculous cliffs coming up. And I say that with love because that is well designed. Those cliffs are just awesome. Now if you look ahead, you can start to see some of that water spray that I was talking about that is affecting our FPS. That's the beginning of the main waterfalls here at Victoria Falls. So we are going to be getting to the grand finale really shortly. And so far I really hope you've enjoyed this little trip down the river here to check out the majesty that is Zimbabwe. Look at that. This is what I want on Niagara Falls. Of course, you'll notice that every now and then it kind of resets itself and then it starts steaming up again. I want to say this might be like a power station, maybe a hydroelectric or something like that. Because look, there's a waterfall there, there's power lines coming down. It's really cool looking. It's really cool looking. Yeah, there what appears to be a power substation, either that or somebody just decided to put a, what do you call it, a power line on their roof just because. I'm inclined to think that might be a substation. I could be wrong though. Either way, let's do that final sprint to get to the falls themselves, and we'll go back to the outside view and put it to the back camera. Telling you folks, this is no joke. I am almost at a hover here. I'm going at about 10 knots just to make it through this place. Now we are getting a slight bit of stutters, so that is unfortunate, but not wholly unexpected. As soon as we make this turn, however, we should be getting pretty close to the falls themselves. As you can see, it's pretty treacherous. It is pretty treacherous. I dare say for the scenery developer, if you want to do the Grand Canyon next, I will not say no to that. Can you make it look like this, please? Holy crap, this is incredible. Alright, here we go. This is the infamous bridge, and I say it like that because if you look really closely, every now and then there's a bungee jumper that actually jumps off this bridge. So we're going to attempt to bring her to a hover, which is going to be tricky considering we're in the middle of a wind tunnel right now. But we'll see if we can do it here. I don't think he's jumped yet, but he's about to. There he goes. You see him? That's just awesome. So he's going to reset himself in a moment here, but let's go up to the top. We'll just kind of hang out here. We'll try to go to the outside view, and hopefully I will get a good shot of him coming down. But you can see his bungee cable is all bouncy and stuff. Alright, he is back to the top. We're going to go to the outside view and check him out as he jumps. Folks, that's just crazy. I don't care who you are. There is not enough money in the world to pay me to do something like that. I don't mind doing shenanigans like this, hanging here in a helicopter, watching a guy bungee jump off of a bridge. But there is no way in hell that you're going to attach basically 2 elastic bands to my feet and tell me to go jump. Yeah, no, get out of here with that. There he goes again. He is a glutton for punishment. I love it. Alright, but this is the moment that we have been waiting for. Ladies and gentlemen, cast your eyes to the forward part of the helicopter here, and you are going to see behind all that mist the Great Victoria Falls. I'm trying to see if I can get us up a little bit higher so that you can really take in just how big this is. And thankfully the weather cooperated here, so it's actually looking pretty good. I'm thinking what we might do though is, you'll notice there's a helipad right there. We're going to see if we can bring her down to that helipad here. And that way I'll go to the drone camera and get you a nice cinematic view of the area. And then we're going to fly off to our final airport, which should have a whole bunch of helipads for us. Now, one thing I did notice, which is a minor critique for the scenery developer, I don't know if all of these helipads do not have windsocks, but windsocks might be helpful. You will have noticed that the first helipad that we were at had one, but like this one, something tells me this helipad could most definitely use a windsock. So, not sure if that is something that you can add maybe at a later date, or maybe it really doesn't have one in real life and you just gotta kind of pray that you make it in. But I know I, as a virtual helicopter pilot, would feel a hell of a lot more comfortable if I actually had a windsock to tell me which way to land and take off. But that's just me. Let me push through the ground effect here and plop her down. There we go. Woo! That was a little bouncy there. I thought I had her perfect. Okay. Alright, folks, we're going to go to the outside view for a couple of minutes here, and I want to see if I can get some really good cinematic shots. Just be advised, because of all this steam, it may look a little bit choppy in the resulting video. Try not to crucify me in the comments for it. You know, there's not much I can really do about that. But here we go. I don't care who you are, folks. That is impressive. That is a true Kodak moment. And my purple hat goes off to to Jefferson for the creation of this scenery. This is absolutely magnificent. And there has been no better way to show it off than in this helicopter, the FlyInside Bell 206. This is truly a match made in heaven. Alright, but we do need to see if we can find our airport. So, once again, collectives coming up, pedals going in, cyclic coming back barely. Let's go over these majestic falls here. We are now out of ground effects. You can see the water below, and holy crap. Look at how long these falls are. That's just nuts. Let's go to the BelGeode landing camp. This is the planet we live on, folks. This is how beautiful Mother Earth can truly be. And I would figure something this majestic is in Zimbabwe, of all places. Mama Africa. Absolutely incredible. I'm just in love. I'm just in love. Alright, let's see if we can make it to our airport, provided, of course, I remember where it is. I know it's one of those two purple dots there. I'm looking for the one that's got multiple helipads. I suppose we should probably try the one on the right first. I am getting a little bit of stutters now, so apologies in advance for that. Hopefully it will not become too critical. I'm hoping anyway. We might want to go back to the outside view though and see if it mitigates that. Yeah, it doesn't appear to be alleviating that, so we're going to go back to that helipad and we're going to call this done. Those are the brakes, folks. Sometimes we do run into these issues, but I would rather save the video by landing us someplace where at least it's picturesque and we've got less technical issues than push it to my original landing spot. You know me, if I get an emergency, I generally tend to act on said emergency. In this case, our emergency is technical and not actually aviation related. Although I should check the gas just to make sure we're not running out. Okay, no, we're good. We're good. I'm assuming that's probably a hotel or something over there. Not 100% certain, but either way, we're going to go back to that helipad, and that is where we will call it for today, because to be honest with you, I don't really have much more to say about this. We'll let the audio speak for itself. You hear that, right? The roar of the waterfalls behind me. If I turn a little bit to the right, it'll influence my right ear, and it'll actually sound a little bit louder. Of course, the helicopter is pretty loud as it is, even with our David Clarks on. But yeah, they've even got the roar of the waterfalls. To me, folks, this scenery is just perfect. Aside from the little technical issues that we had there, this is the real highlight of the scenery here, so I can live with all of that. This area is just perfect. So once again, thank you, Jefferson, for creating this scenery. This is just incredible. Of course, the links to everything will be in the video description below, so definitely feel free to pick this one up. I can't recommend this thing any higher. This is just awesome. Same goes for this helicopter as well, both this and the Cowan Sim, although I gotta say I've had a lot of fun flying this one. If you're gonna ask me to pick which one I prefer right now, just based on the amount of times I have flown both helicopters, I'm gonna go with this one as I wibble wobble my way to the ground here. I should probably stabilize myself before landing, huh? Alright, right there's good. Yeah, are we a little far forward? Yes. Are we on the edge? Also yes. So I'm okay with that. Alrighty folks, that will do it. So welcome to my inaugural video for the year 2023, and I sincerely hope it has come out a little decent, so that way I can actually put it on YouTube and not just trash it and try to record another one. Sheesh. So I hope you've enjoyed this chill video. As always, this has been BelGeode. I have been flying in Microsoft Flight Simulator in Sim Update 11. And the aircraft that we've been using have been the FlyInside Bell 206 JetRanger. Highly recommend this one. If you are a helicopter aficionado, this one is awesome. Again, huge thank you to Dan from FlyInside. Dan and I have had a friendship for many years, ever since he first turned me on to VR with FlyInside for FSX. So if there is any one person to blame as to why I have VR videos on this channel, you can blame Dan, because he was the one who really started my love affair with virtual reality. And thank you so much for that, Dan. I owe you a million. Keep them coming. Keep these helicopters coming, because so far you are doing an awesome job with this stuff, and I love the fact that it's getting updates very regularly. I can't wait to see this thing improve more. Alright, and don't forget the scenery that we've been using has been by, I want to say it's Jefferson 2001. Like I said, if it's incorrect, it'll be in the little pop-up right now, but this is Victoria Falls Scenery Package here in Zimbabwe in Africa. And I can't give this enough thumbs up. If I had a third and a fourth thumb, I would most definitely put them up. But right now, the most I can do is 2. Absolutely incredible. You need to get this. You seriously need to get this. This is like one of the wonders of the world here. And aside from that, if you enjoy what you've seen, please feel free to give me a like. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. I will be back in the near future with some more Microsoft goodness, more than likely looking at the other 206 out there. And of course, we'll pick a unique, beautiful place to fly that one in as well. Until next time, folks, thank you as always for watching, and this is BelGeode signing out. Ciao.